What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Getting Technical. Took a 3-month break.
No, it's longer than that.
The last episode we did was me and Zach, and it was in June. It was like YouTube said 3 months ago.
July, August, September.
More or less 3 or 4 months. But we're back. No Zach, but we're gonna run it as much as we can. Let's get back into it. I think we wanted to start with the NFL this week. We got a bunch of games coming up on Sunday. Let's see. What do we want to start with? I think what we wanted to start with was our lock of the week. So we're each going to give you one of our locks, and then after that we're going to parlay them ourselves, see how it goes. I think we got a good chance of hitting, but let's see.
I'd hope so.
So I guess I'll start. So my lock of the week is Lions -3 over the Bucks.
I'm taking the Commanders +2.5 against the Falcons.
And I got Miami at home -14 over Carolina.
You think they're going to... I definitely see that. 14's a lot of points, but...
Carolina's...
Who scores more
bad.
points than
Carolina's
Miami?
dog water.
No one. I saw that Bryce Young's got the worst QBR in the league right now, and it's really not even close.
Yeah.
I think it's like 28 or something like that.
Yeah,
They're just a
I think
horrible team.
Second worst is Pickett.
Well, he stinks,
and,
too.
and guess who's one spot above Zach Wilson?
Oh, God.
Danny Dimes.
I'm surprised it's not last, to be honest, with the way that they played.
It's slow bucks.
There's just
slow.
a lot of bad quarterbacks like these days. If you look, like there's that select few, and you got the Mahomes, Josh Allen,
Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert.
But even guys like Lamar's had a weird season. Burrow's had a really weird season.
You guys were on my ass in the fantasy group chat about Lamar. They dropped 3 touchdowns. And you guys are like, oh, he's trash.
He hasn't thrown for 250 yards this year. Like
he doesn't need
Lamar's
to.
Good. Like especially if you look at him as a fantasy QB. But I think like as an overall quarterback, I think that the Ravens have too much talent to be in all these tight games. Like every game, they're never blowing teams out, and they have this great defense. Their offense isn't amazing. They don't really have a great running back. They got Mark Andrews. Zay Flowers is a stud. They got Bateman. We'll see when Odell comes back, but they lost to the Colts.
They lose winnable games.
They lose so many winnable games, and then they do squeak out games that they should probably lose. But more or less, I feel like if Lamar was this elite quarterback, that they wouldn't be in these close games.
But still, if those touchdowns aren't dropped, just those alone, it's I think like a 50-yard touchdown to Nelson Aguilar, a 7-yard touchdown to Rashad Bateman, and like a 5-yard touchdown to Mark Andrews, and like a 17-yard pass was dropped in the middle of the field by Zay Flowers. Also another bomb Zay Flowers misjudged, which was like a 50-yard pass, and he misjudged, spun around, tripped over his own feet. So right there, assuming all of those are caught because they're all open players and they all the ball was where it had to be, that's at least 100 yards.
If we're not talking fantasy, there's probably close to 8 to 10 quarterbacks I'd rather take over Lamar Jackson to have on my team. Like,
name them.
Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. I'd probably Trevor Lawrence, debatably. You could possibly go Jared Goff.
No.
Rawls.
Don't give me that.
I think Jared Goff's been balling out, but I think what it's come to is there was a lot of talk of Lamar being a top 5 QB, and I just don't think that he is. And I think there's a consensus 3 or 4 guys right now that are at the top. And I would say Mahomes undisputably 1. Yeah. I would say Allen is back in that 2 spot. Justin Herbert,
Jalen
Hurts, and then you could see maybe Burrow if he's not hurt.
The rest is debatable.
As of right now, Tua
is in that mix. I think Lamar's in that mix. I think Goff's in the top 10 mix. I think Kirk's he's in that Kirk range.
But that's the same spot that we're putting Lamar.
I agree. I think they're on the
all
same
debatable.
tier of quarterback. I just think that Lamar, he has to put it together this year. He's had the MVP year, but they were a first-round exit, I believe, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Last year, it was the injuries, the contracts. They have a good team this year. They have a team that should be able to win. They have a great defense. They've got weapons on offense. Let's see, maybe towards the trade deadline, they make a move and acquire another offensive guy. Maybe they go and get, we were talking about the Colts before, maybe if the Colts They just paid John Taylor. Zach Moss is having a good year. Maybe they sell high on Zach Moss. Like kind of you were saying with fantasy. It's like maybe Zach Moss has proven as a lead back this year that he's effective. They're struggling with the Justice Hill, Gus Edwards. It just doesn't – it's not really moving. So maybe they're like, screw it, we got to go for it. Let's try and get a guy like Zach Moss. Probably won't cost us too much, but maybe he can help take some pressure off Lamar and open things up.
Definitely not a bad idea. I don't think that they'd do it. I think they'd rather go into the draft and just take somebody, give up on the J.K. Dobbins situation. And
it's not gonna. Yeah, it's not working.
Yeah, it's just not working, and it sucks
It's
because
unfortunate.
he was a great player at Ohio State, good prospect coming out. He just couldn't stay healthy, and it happens to plenty of players.
Yeah.
Best ability is availability.
It really is true.
That's why they say. I mean, most NFL careers are only about 3 to 4 years long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, getting into that, since we just I kind of brought up Zach Moss and selling high on him if you're the Colts. We wanted to get into a little segment, buy low, sell high for fantasy football this upcoming week. So I'll start off. I think a perfect buy candidate to buy low right now is Jalen Waddle. In full point PPR, he's wide receiver 47. He's averaging 11.8 points per game. I think that volume goes up. I mean, a lot of it's been Tyreek so far, and then they've had those games with A-Chain and with Mostert where they're just those two combined for 9 touchdowns in that Denver game. I think that especially with A-Chain on the IR now, I think they're still going to lean on Mostert. Jeff Wilson, we'll see if he's back this week. I think he is.
Yeah, I think so because he was on IR to start the season, so 4 weeks he's good.
Yeah, but we know they love to throw the ball, and it's only a matter of time until Waddle, especially with all the attention that Tyreek's going to bring. Like it's just going to open things up for him. So I think if you can get him for the right price, I think he's definitely someone that you should buy low on right now. My sell high candidate would be DeAndre Swift. So I think DeAndre Swift's like a great running back. I just don't believe in what the Eagles do with their running backs. We saw with Miles Sanders last year was like the first year they really started giving him the ball. But we know a lot of those goal line ones they do the tush push. It's always Jalen Hurts who's finding himself running into the end zone. He's had a really good stretch, but if you look at it, his carries, he's not like a 25 to 30 carry a game guy. He's more of like a 15 to 17, which for the most part is fine. I believe last week he had six catches as well, but it's not really consistent volume. So I personally, especially with the injury risk with him, he's had his issues with that over the past few years. I think right now if you can sell him high, someone who really believes in him as like a top 5 to 10 back, I think it's definitely worth looking into.
All right. My buy low is Darren Waller. The Giants suck. I mean, let's be honest. But the thing about Darren Waller is the Giants always find the tight ends on these quick passes, which is what they need to do because their offensive line absolutely blows. So theoretically, I mean, he hasn't had very good fantasy production so far, but I would expect that to change. They have to change something about the offense, and quick passes is what they pretty much have to do because they have whatever quarterback is playing this week, Tyrod Taylor, they're going to have no time. So you got to have the quick passes. I think Darren Waller is a good enough tight end to be have a sustainable fantasy output for the rest of the season. Who knows if it'll work, but that's my buy low. Especially tight ends suck. I mean, there's just not a lot of good ones.
There's actually been this is something I've been thinking about because over the past few years I've been someone who always tried to get a Kelsey or a Mark Andrews. And after this year, I've realized that I'm no longer reaching on tight ends.
There's just not a lot of good ones.
Well, the thing is, but there's a lot of guys who are solid, especially in full point. You can get a guy like Jake Ferguson. You could have picked him up off waivers. For the most part, the Cowboys have been in a few blowouts, so it's been a bit weird. But Dak always likes his tight ends.
Right.
So he's going to be a guy, I think, down the stretch as they're in these closer games. He's going to probably get 7 catches a game. And 7 catches a game for 50 yards is
good for a tight end. Yeah, I know.
Which is solid.
Awesome.
And then there's guys like Dalton Schultz. Darren Waller, like you said. Mark Andrews is kind of out of that mix now. He hasn't really been that great. But
He had
there's a
good-
lot of guys that you can get now that are even Logan Thomas. Like he had
Yeah,
Sam
they're
Howell
not
threw to
like
him
the
9
top-
times last week.
If you have other guys on your roster, yeah, like if you're not reaching for a tight end, you should have better, whether it's wide receivers or running backs. But yeah, reaching for a tight end, unless you have like Kelsey, they're just not that worth it.
Yeah, especially. I learned the hard way this year because I reached in one of my leagues on Mark Andrews, and it was just a terrible choice. Like I picked him at the top of the 3rd round, and it's a half-point PPR league, and it was just a mistake. Like I would have been. He's had one good week. Outside of that, I would have been better off like getting Dalton Schultz off waivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Dalton Schultz is like, it's so hit or miss. Like he could have a 25-point week, and then the next week he'll have like 3 points, and it's not consistent. Like there's so few consistent tight ends in the league right now.
The good part about Dalton Schultz is that he's on a team like the Texans where they throw the ball 35 to 45 times a game.
Yeah, because they have to.
So there's opportunities there. But when you have a team like, I mean, Jake Ferguson, like you said, is a good one. Like later in the season, he may have like a game where he has 7 catches and probably 10 targets. But it's tough because they try to run the ball as much as they can with Tony Pollard. Dak really hasn't looked good at all this year, outside of a couple games where there were blowouts. But he tries to feed CeeDee Lamb too much. He becomes a one-read quarterback. And there's only so much they could do. Michael Gallup hasn't looked good.
No, they've looked just terrible overall. But I think they'll figure it out. They've been in those games where they played the Jets and the Giants, and they just blew them out because they were just so much better than both of them. Especially with Zach, kind of like you can tell now like he's getting better every week. But week 2 against the Cowboys, coming off no reps with the first team, like it was just a recipe for disaster.
Well, the big thing is that they started to run the football a lot more. I mean, in that game against Dallas, I think wasn't that the week where Brees only had 4 touches?
Yep, that was the week.
They started running the football a little bit more, and we see what's been going on. I mean, the Jets have been able to have more consistent drives and be a little more effective. And I saw one stat actually. Zach's like, I may be butchering this, but I'm pretty sure he has like a 71.2% completion percentage on play action passes.
I don't watch like a ton of the Jets. I mean, I just watch Red Zone. But it looks like they're setting him up for more success. Like they're feeding to his strengths a little bit because they had to obviously change the offense when you're going from Rodgers to Zach Wilson. But they're doing more like quick passes, like helping him out, putting him in better position to succeed. And I mean, it's definitely working. But yeah, I don't think he's the best quarterback. But Brees Hall is a stud.
Yeah.
But I didn't get back to my sell.
Yeah.
My sell high is DJ Moore. You can't pretty much sell at a higher point. He just had a 50 piece. I don't think the Bears are very good. This might be a counterpoint to my argument, but they're going to be throwing it a lot, but you can't sustain the fantasy output that he's been having. So I don't really have too much logic behind it, but if you can get...
He's putting up wide receiver 1 numbers, and he's more of a wide receiver 2.
Especially, it's mainly just because of the shaky quarterback play, right? Like if he was doing this as a wide receiver 1 on the Chargers with Justin Herbert as a quarterback, I would be convinced that he's going to keep this up.
Yeah,
but
you wouldn't be moving him.
We've seen Justin Fields in the past really be more of a running quarterback. But he has looked good. I think he has 8 touchdown passes in the last 2 games.
Yeah, so if you sell him, this is the absolute highest point that he would be after what last week was. So that's my logic behind that.
Sure.
So right now... So... My buy sell. I have Chris Olave as a buy. Past 2 weeks, he has a combined total of I think it's 11.2 points. Caught that touchdown last week against the Patriots, which was, I mean, it wasn't lucky. Obviously, he ran a good route and got a touchdown, but other than that, he had no output.
I think he was 2 for 12, right?
Yep, he was 2 for 12 the week before that. I think he was 1 for 4 or 1 for 14, whichever one it was. But he just didn't look good at all in both of those games and just didn't get it. And I know that they feed Michael Thomas a lot and Alvin Kamara's back, but there's still an opportunity for him to get hit on deep balls and be able to make a play, so you may be able to buy low on him. Sell high, Puka Nacua. I mean, he still put up numbers with with Cooper Kupp coming back, but I mean, I don't know how long they can sustain being able to feed them both 7 to 10 catches a game.
I think they can just because of the system. Like, I think out of the entire league, this is like the one system I'd be like, I think they can because they throw the ball so often. And also just because we know Matt Stafford, like, he's just one of those guys who feeds his guys. So, obviously, Cooper Kupp's his number one guy. And there's no chance Puka tops that. But even if his target share goes from, it was like 36 at one point, Puka's without Cooper Kupp. I think it's still going to be in that 20 range. I think he still saw 10 targets last week. So I think he went 7 for whatever and a touchdown. But I don't think he has like that wide receiver 1 upside, but I still think he's like a solid wide receiver 2. But if you can sell him at that crazy value.
Right, it's kind of a similar situation with DJ Moore. He's putting up wide receiver 1 numbers, but you can sell him at that price, whereas the rest of the season he may end up being more of a wide receiver 2.
All right, so next segment we're going to get into is our top 5 underrated players in the NFL this season. So I guess I could start it off. This really isn't in any order, but for me, my top 5 underrated players this year right now, I got Tyler Lockett, who I think is he's just a guy that goes under the radar every year. He's always the wide receiver number 2 in Seattle, but every year he just makes a lot of plays. I think he's just really slept on for what he does. And especially even if we look at the fantasy aspect of things, like, he just puts up like silent numbers every year. Every year he's going to be a guy who's like a top 15 wide receiver. And yeah, just someone who I think most people just overlook. Number 4, I got Mike Evans. 3, I got James Cook. 2, Christian Kirk. And 1, I have Brandon Ayuk. I put Ayuk there just because he's so overlooked on that offense. I mean, realistically, he's probably, the 3rd or 4th option? You could even make the case that he's the 5th option, right? CMC, Debo, Kittle. Now he's the 4th option. But
I mean, to be honest, at this rate, with the way that they've been throwing the football, you could even make the argument that he's 2 or 3.
yeah, I mean, if you look at the stats, I mean, Kittle had that 3 touchdown game. But
Right, before that, he really didn't do anything.
Really, yeah, not much.
And the thing is, like, just watching the film, Ayuk's the better pure receiver as compared to Debo. I mean, Debo's great. He finds holes, he gets open, he's able to get a lot of yak. But when it comes to pure route running and jump ball situations and being an actual top receiver, I think Ayuk is more of a better option for especially that team.
Absolutely. I think another thing with him is 2 years ago, Debo had that season where he was just being used basically as a running back as well, and he was making all these amazing plays after the catch. And Ayuk just kind of got overlooked. But like you said, as a pure wide receiver, I think Brandon Ayuk is just better.
Yeah.
I think you could make the argument that as a weapon, you would rather have Debo Samuel. But as a pure pass catcher and route running, I think it's definitely Ayuk.
Yeah.
You want to go?
Sure. So my underrated list, no specific order either, but 5, I have Sam Howell. I think Sam Howell is good. I'm looking. His numbers are outside of the one Buffalo game where he threw 4 picks. I think 2 of those were at the end of the game, Hail Marys. Yeah. Wasn't really anything that he could do anyway. He throws for a ton of yards, and he's legitimately good. I'm a believer in Sam Howell. I think he's underrated.
I think he's legitimately solid. You think he's good? Where would you rank him?
He can be, but
where would you rank him?
We don't know enough.
Would you rank him a top 15 QB or no?
No.
Maybe not yet.
He's in
but I think he could be.
What tier would you put him in?
Probably in maybe the 15 to 20.
Who would you say are his who would you compare him to as far as skill level?
Oh man.
Ryan Tannehill?
It's better than Tannehill.
Yeah, I think he's better than Tannehill.
I think as of
then
right now, based
off
the way
that Tannehill level, he's starting to creep into that.
He's probably
Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins,
I would
that's the next tier above it, right? Guys who we believe are good quarterbacks, But for the most part, unless they have a great team around them, they're probably not going to lead you.
I think
to
he's.
The Super
I think
Bowl.
he's right under Goff and Kirk, but he's and probably still as of right now under Geno. But then I think it goes like him, Baker Mayfield, and then you could probably throw. I mean, just the past 2 weeks at least, Justin Fields.
Yeah. I definitely think that makes sense to me. I think Baker's like a really good comp for him right now.
Yeah.
Especially since Baker, as much as like I love to like hate on Baker over the years, like he's proving he's really just a solid. He's a solid quarterback.
He's a good starting quarterback.
He's been better than Derek Carr for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
That's another guy I would say. Derek Carr is probably in that conversation you like.
I would definitely take Sam Howell over Derek Carr, but
maybe for the future. I don't know if I would do that.
Yeah,
right now.
I would
do it right now.
He's been started 4 or 5 games in his career.
Yeah,
did he start last year?
He just looked good.
I think he might have started
like 2 games
yeah.
of the season, maybe.
I don't know if I would take over Derek Carr. Seems a little early.
Derek Carr has looked rough.
I just think the upside is there. Like,
yeah, but like,
Derek Carr, you know what you're getting.
I understand Derek Carr hasn't looked great, and then had that injury. But it's like Sam Howell did throw 4 picks. Like
that was a bad game, but he's still early in his career.
And I agree. Like I don't think interceptions are a good stat to use against quarterbacks a lot now because of all the tip balls and like the Hail Mary. Like what do they call it? What is it? It's like a punt. They call it the air punt or something. What do they say?
Just a toss up.
Yeah.
No, like if you like instead of like punting like on 4th down, dude just throws it deep. Gets picked off. There's a name for it.
I don't know what the name is. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But through 5 games, he has almost 1,400 yards. He threw 388 yards last game.
All right, but look at the teams he's doing it against.
Name them.
Well, Philly threw for 300.
He threw for 200 yards against Arizona. He threw for 300 against Denver. 170 against Buffalo.
That was the bad game.
290 against Philadelphia. Good. 388 in a game where they were getting killed against Chicago. It was all comeback. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm just saying, like,
he's underrated.
See a little bit more.
He's fantasy QB number 14 right now.
He's a second-year guy to be underrated, though.
Well, but coming into the year, I mean, most people, he probably wasn't drafted in most leagues.
And he's just not really.
I wouldn't want to really start him in any league either.
I mean, if
maybe like a dynasty league.
Let's just say you drafted Aaron Rodgers and you decided to pick Russell Wilson as your backup.
Yeah, no,
you go out and you pick up Sam Howell off of free agency, and now
he's a desperation start though.
Right, but he's still being started.
I just think the upside's there.
What does it say on fantasy that his roster percentage in ESPN?
19%.
See, like that's underrated. Like, and he's putting up how many points a game?
16.4.
That's skewed because the Bills game he had like 0.4.
0.6.
0.6.
Right. So realistically, he's probably putting up close.
That's one of those games where you just put him on your "I'm done with you" list.
So he's putting up closer to 6. He's putting up closer to 18 points a game.
Probably
for a guy who's
20. Yeah.
15, 21, 20, 25.
Yeah. So he's putting up roughly 18 points a game. We'll say outside of the Buffalo game. So that's the same percentage. His number of points per game is the same percentage he's owned in leagues.
Right.
And what's his positional ranking? Probably like what, 21?
No, he's fantasy QB number 14, and that's with a 0.6 game.
Yeah.
I think he's good. Fantasy
that's
and just
a
an
lot of
NFL
guys
quarterback.
like Anthony Richardson's probably lower because he left like 2 or 3 games. It's all the fantasy rankings are a little bit.
Yeah, I mean we're 6 weeks into, so definitely there's some skewing, but
who else?
He's underrated.
No, it's fair.
Cortland Sutton, he's sneaky, like very consistent. He's not going to get you a ton of points, but he'll get you in that 10 to 15 pretty much every single week.
I love how this turns into like an underrated fantasy list. Like, what? It's my fault because I started talking about fantasy stuff when I was doing mine.
But I do agree that
he gets touches. Like, he gets some targets. He's underrated because he doesn't really get talked about a whole lot.
Because he's just always has a bad quarterback.
Yeah.
And then he had those injuries, right?
But what were you going to say? Yeah, he did. He has had injuries. But he's sneaky. Like, I'll look at what his target share is right now.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely... just one play sticks out to me from from Monday Night Football where he was running like a deep dig across the middle. It hit him right in the hands, and he dropped it, and it just looked bad. But like sometimes that happens in games where the quarterback isn't playing well, the defense is keying in on everything. You can't run the ball that well, and it's just like shit just starts to pile up on you as the game goes on. It just makes it tough, and those other things are just amplified.
He has 4 touchdowns through 6 games, and none of those games were a multi-touchdown game, so they're all spread out. He had 1 bad game against the Jets, but other than that, I mean, he's getting at the minimum like 5 targets a game.
That touchdown catch he had last night was crazy too.
Yeah,
You see that?
So
That was nuts.
I just think he's underrated. I think he doesn't really get talked about, and he's pretty consistent, which is
what you're
pretty
looking
much
for.
all you could ask for in fantasy, because the up and down swings is what kills you. Because then you bench somebody who outplays, and it's just the worst. So 3, I have Cole Kmet. He's very sneaky, having a fantastic year
Yeah, he's
in
like
Chicago.
ranked, like, top 5, right?
Yeah.
For tight ends.
This goes back to the point about tight ends not being, the best, but he is having a really good year. And he doesn't get a whole lot of shine. Granted, they're always down, so they're always passing, but still underrated. 2, I have Adam Thielen. I think he's really underrated because his target share is crazy. He gets a ton of targets. People were kind of writing him off now that since he made the move going to Carolina, but Bryce Young loves him, and he's proven that he still has it, and he's an underrated wide receiver. He's consistent. He did it in Minnesota, and he's still doing it. So I consider him underrated. And then 1, I have Kyron Williams. He hasn't proven it. It hasn't been long enough, but I think he's fantasy running back number 5. He doesn't get talked about at all, and he finds the end zone a lot. He's a stud when it comes to fantasy. We'll see over the course of the season how it kind of plays out. But there's so many good fantasy running backs that a lot of he just doesn't get the shine that I think he should have through 6 weeks. I mean, it's still early, but he's underrated to me.
Yeah.
So the first one I got is C.J. Stroud. I mean, he's owned in just under 62% of leagues. Like I said, they throw the ball at least 35, 45 times a game. And I mean, it's tough when Tank Dell went down one game, so it kind of hurt him a little bit. And especially since Dameon Pierce hasn't been good, they've had to throw the ball a little bit more. So I think with C.J. Stroud, it just comes to they're just going to be down in a lot of games, similar to the Chicago Bears situation. Nico Collins has looked really good for them. Dalton Schultz was a good pickup in the offseason. Tank Dell, if he's able to come back healthy, is good. But I think if you're looking for a quarterback and you're in a situation where, like I said, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, Russell Wilson was your backup, and you need somebody, if he's still available or if somebody's making him available for trade, he's a decent guy to go out and get. I got a running back, Rashad White. He gets 19 touches a game and averages 73 yards per game. And he only has 1 touchdown, but he's been consistent when it comes to being able to get the ball and putting up yardage. I mean, the touchdowns will come. Those are so variety based, like you really can't bank on that. But as long as you know he's getting touches and he's going to get the yards, that's really all you can ask for. And I mean, obviously there's situations with Cortland Sutton where you get a touchdown every single game, but not every player's like that.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I have Rashad White. He had the one game where he put up like 27 points, and then outside of that,
And that
it's
was
like,
the one game he scored a touchdown.
Yeah. And
Other than that, it's like 12 to 15.
right. Yeah.
Next one I got is Rashee Rice.
Yeah, he had a good game last night.
He's been sneakily solid. I think he's honestly becoming the number 1 wide receiver option. I think Kadarius Toney, his time as trying to take that spot away is kind of up. I don't think Mahomes trusts MVS to be the number 1 option. Rice has been good. He's very good after the catch. He's He's a decent guy to have when you're in the red zone, and especially now with Travis Kelce's ankle injury, they're going to need somebody to come in and kind of take over that role if he's going to end up missing a couple weeks. So I think he's a decent guy to go out and get. Next up is Josh Reynolds for Detroit. 28% of the leagues, he's owned in. So he's still available in a bunch of leagues. He's somebody who's always going to go out and put up solid numbers. I mean, he's a decent guy to have as a flex for bye weeks. I had his numbers up before, but I lost it. But for a team like Detroit that throws the ball a decent amount of time and runs the ball, like their offense is very, very steady.
They have a really good offense. I know you're pissed about Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, it's frustrating for me. I mean, I still believe in Jahmyr Gibbs, but as far as and I think he'll be a good player. I think he's still really talented, but as far as like fantasy goes, I think it's just like really confusing, and I feel like it's one of the weirder stories in a while, because they draft this guy at 12, which is a complete reach for him. You saw the video of them going crazy, celebrating that they just got this guy, and then all these reports coming out of the summer, he looks so good. People were comparing him like CMC as far as like skill, and they were like, we're gonna use him in so many different ways, and then it comes out and it's just like the ways they're using him is just not using it. They're not gonna use him at all. Like they give Montgomery the workload. They don't even really use him in the pass game. I think he had one game with 7 catches or 7 targets. But outside of that, it's just been he shows flashes, but he's just not playing that much.
The most confusing thing at times is like he'll rip off like a 12 to 18 yard run, and then he gets taken out, and then Montgomery comes in and he goes three straight carries, 2 yards, punt.
It's just weird, and it's like it's kind of, I guess it's just the style that they like Dan Campbell likes to go with, because last year you saw Jamal Williams had all those touchdowns. Well, I think we could all agree that DeAndre Swift is probably the more talented back there, and now it's just bizarre because I feel like they probably could have gotten Jahmyr Gibbs late first round, early second round, maybe even later. They reach on him at 12, and then it's like, just as like if I'm a fan of Detroit, like I'm excited that we got a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, but at the same time, like if we're not going to use him, why did we not address a position of need with our top pick?
One thing that I will say about it is, unless they couldn't find a team to trade back with where they thought that there was decent enough value and they think Jahmyr Gibbs would still have fallen to them, just saying like, screw it, we'll take him in the first round, because you, instead of waiting for the second, hoping that he's there, you get that 5th-year option now since he's a first-round pick.
But then just use him.
It's crazy. And it did come out that they were going to ease him into the offense, and who knows? We could look like fools in like a month and a half.
Yeah,
he comes back.
Thanksgiving, he's averaging 16 points a game by Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. They could finally ease him in. Montgomery could tweak an ankle, or they could just be like, look, like we don't need you running the ball 30 times a game. We're going to give Gibbs 12 to 15, because I think that's really I think he needs 12 to 15 carries, and I think he needs like 4 or 5 targets at least. I think he's one of those guys where, kind of like a Debo, you just want to get the ball in his hands. It's like when you're watching the Jets and it's like, okay, I know that Zach's not this great consistent thrower, but even if it's just screens to Garrett Wilson and Brees, it's like I just want to get the ball in these guys' hands, because once they get the ball, they make something good happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's something as far as like the Jets go, because we watch, that's who we're mainly watching. Everything else is kind of like red zone, but for the most part, we watch all the Jets games. And you could see that they're trying to just get the ball to, Garrett on like a quick screen and see what he can do. And it's just things like that. I think that's how they should be using Gibbs, but we'll see. Like we said, and once he comes back, we could all look like we could look like idiots or being like, they didn't know what they were doing, and they're already they're 4-1.
Yeah, the ease him in part doesn't really make like a whole lot of sense, especially the length of running backs don't last that long, and
well, that's because of the workload they get. If he's not getting the workload, then you don't have to worry about.
But you see it like Bijan Robinson, he's killing it in Atlanta.
Yeah,
they didn't ease him in. He's the workhorse.
That's another thing with fantasy. Like Saquon as a rookie,
Saquon as a rookie.
Todd Gurley, I think, as a
Zeke
rookie. Zeke as a rookie. All these guys as rookies, they come in with this high workload and they're good. But the downside is a lot of them burn out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Zeke Elliott.
I mean, the list
Todd
goes on and
Gurley.
on. Being an NFL running back, I mean, you get a lot of, like, you get hit a ton. That their careers aren't very long, but I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do, but
Yeah.
I have David Montgomery. I
We
drafted him
gonna
in like the
find out.
9th round, so it was nice.
Yeah.
It sucks for me. I drafted Gibbs high in 2 leagues, and it was just bad.
So back to Josh Reynolds. His scoring output. I mean, week 1, 12 points. Then week 2, he had 20, just under 24. In Atlanta, he didn't even get a target, which was rough. But then he came back against Green Bay, 10 points, and then last week against Carolina, 17 and a half. So he has, most of the time in his games, he's getting double-digit points, and he's putting up numbers. That game against Atlanta, like, it is what it is. I mean, they have plenty of guys. I mean, they have your guy, Amon-Ra, over there. They've run the ball with David Montgomery a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is the last game, Amon-Ra was out, so that's why his target share was a little bit higher. But he still does get the ball, so.
He also passes the eye test.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not always watching all the Lions snaps and everything, but when they're on those primetime games, especially I think it was the first game of the season, right? The season opener.
Yeah.
He just looked good.
Yeah.
He made a few really tough catches. He looked like a guy that could be trusted, and it seems like Jared Goff does trust him, and I feel like that's half the battle with these wide receivers.
Well,
Anyway, nowadays.
yeah, I mean, it's huge because they played together in L.A., so, I mean, the familiarity is there, especially when it comes to training camp and getting your timing down with a guy and knowing exactly what he likes to do. It's definitely good. But the last guy I have is Tyler Conklin, and I wrote a bunch of stuff down. So he has a steady target share over the past 4 weeks, and he's been averaging 8 points per game over that time without even recording a touchdown. And I think that's huge because we were talking about how there's really no consistency and there's really no good tight ends outside of really the top dogs. And then you'll have kind of a couple breakout games here and there. And they're playing the Eagles this weekend. And the Eagles are statistically the worst team against tight ends in the entire NFL. And I think this is a perfect week where he's probably a free agent in most leagues. I mean, I can look it up real quick. He's probably... Yeah, 18%. So he's rostered in 18% of ESPN leagues. He's available if you have a guy on a bye week or if you just haven't really loved what your tight end output has been so far. I mean, he's definitely a decent guy to go out and get.
Take a shot on him.
Especially for a guy like Zach Wilson. I mean, a tight end could become like a security blanket as the season goes on, especially if Garrett Wilson's getting doubled and Alan Lazard just can't get open. Definitely a good guy.
Have you seen Tyler Conklin's girl, Scotty Conklin?
Oh, yeah, why?
She's smoke.
Oh, yeah. I thought like something happened.
She's just really good looking.
The first thing that came to my mind was when Nick Bawden scored that touchdown last week. There was like a video going around of like his wife like freaking out. She was like watching at like a gym or something. She was like running around celebrating when he scored.
I wonder what an anytime touchdown Nick Bawden.
Plus 40K.
Honestly, I forgot that he was even on the team, to be honest.
I'm actually glad they have him on the team because it infuriates the hell out of me when they go 3 tight ends and they try and run a stretch for Brees. Put a fucking fullback in, let him lead block, and let Brees make the cut off of that.
You saw even on that long touchdown that Brees had, the hole was so big that Bawden didn't even have to block the guy.
Right.
You could see he literally was just running with him, didn't even have to block the guy.
So, and I think like that was because they were doing a lot of power. I noticed that last week against the Broncos. They were running a lot of power, a lot of like guard pulling. I mean, I think Tippmann was the highest ranked offensive lineman according to PFF last week. So I think that
he's been good. He's been a really nice surprise.
Yeah, he's been a great surprise, and I really hope that Carter Warren, the guard that we drafted, I hope he can kind of pan out, and because McGovern's probably gone after this year, so I hope that Tippmann can eventually go back to his natural position at center, and Carter Warren can step in and become that right guard option for us, kick Mekhi back over to right, and then hopefully figure out the left tackle position once and for all in the offseason, because it's just rough, because now with an Achilles injury for Elijah Vera Tucker, he has an injury history. You don't know when he's coming back. I want Dwayne Brown sent to fucking Mars. He's looked awful. He's the reason why we're with Zach Wilson right now, even though he's looked okay. Dwayne Brown's the reason why Aaron Rodgers went down.
Yeah, but I mean, the way that offensive line's played this first few weeks of the season, I mean, it seems inevitable that Aaron Rodgers was going to get hurt. I mean, Zach Wilson, he's pretty mobile, but I mean, he was getting killed some of the time. A lot of the times it's similar to like what Danny Dimes has to go through. Like Zach Wilson sometimes just running for his life.
But the biggest difference is that, and they showed this stat as the weeks have gone on, Zach spent so much time with the ball in his hands, and his completion percentage was like below like 30%. When he was getting the ball out in under 2 seconds, his completion percentage was almost doubled.
It was like 68, right?
Yeah, it was almost double.
Yeah, the quick passes.
Because he's getting the ball,
That's what the Giants need to
not
do.
allowing the offensive line to break down, which is kind of, I mean, it's different for the Giants because the Giants
it's a dumpster
right off the
fire.
snap, they're screwed.
I saw something on Twitter that was like so ridiculous. I
you
can
guys have
try
had
and find
multiple
it,
injuries, and even your starters like Evan Neal.
Oh.
He's
Well,
he's
it's
a
the
bust
whole
at this
line.
point.
The only good offensive lineman that we have is Andrew Thomas, and
And he's
he's hurt.
That's what I'm
see
saying.
that?
So
It
it's
really
either
is,
injuries or you have shitty starters.
That
That's
Don
what I'm saying.
LaGreca rant
Well,
was
actually,
so good.
Oh, that was all timer.
John Michael Schmitz
is
he
good.
just got put into the starting lineup. He wasn't a starter to start the year, was he?
No, he was, but he's hurt.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say. Okay, I got you.
No, he's hurt. So our two best offensive linemen are out. Even when they were in, it didn't even matter. It's a dumpster
You
fire.
guys are just bad.
And you don't
We're
really
just
have,
a bad team.
You
just
don't have
bad.
much of a running game. I mean, Saquon being out really killed you. I mean, he was
Yeah,
your whole going into the season, he was your whole offense.
Yeah.
Is Saquon gonna play this week?
No.
No, you don't think
He's
so?
questionable. He's questionable.
Because I had to pick up Matt Breida in that league.
I mean,
right off an RB2.
That's three. It's
I
three
wouldn't
straight
even-
weeks he's out.
I wouldn't even like.
What's the point of playing him against the Bills?
Yeah, we're gonna get
You guys
killed.
are gonna
anyway.
lose by
Crushed.
40, not 40.
Yeah, the
probably
line-
25.
I said this.
What's the line on that?
We were like
Probably 8.
14 and a half underdogs against Miami.
That
I'm
sounds
like, are
like
these
free
people on
money.
crack? Whoever, like, I knew they were going to get absolutely killed. This week's going to be the same exact thing. I don't know why they keep putting the Giants on prime time. It makes me
You guys are on primetime again.
yeah, Sunday night.
Oh my!
And we got to watch this
God.
bloodbath.
They got to start flexing. Like I would much rather. I mean, there's really no other game.
It's painful.
Maybe flexing Seattle and Cincinnati, but it's tough to flex at 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock.
It is.
Not
That's
gonna
really
do
the
that.
only option.
We're gonna have to watch this game. It is what it is.
Or
You know
if
what's
you wanna
even
flex
worse?
out, put the Jets on.
What's even worse is after the season that we had with no expectations last year to make the playoffs, win a playoff game. Sure, we got smoked by Philly, but you could see something was building there. And then to put this shit out is the most depressing thing as a Giants fan. Like,
It's
guys are
by the
so
way,
bad.
it's minus 15.
The Giants game?
Yeah.
That's a lot of points.
Yeah.
But it's
how
kinda
do you
like-
even take the
but
Giants?
with the Giants,
there?
it's kind of like
You could still take a plus 15. You could even tease it up probably to 17.
But
They could get killed by 40.
They could.
But the thing is that I wanted to bring up
Tyrod
with,
Taylor.
with them. Tyrod Taylor's probably better than
He
Daniel Jones
actually-
At this
now.
point,
Yeah.
The thing is,
Not
though, is like, do you think that the success that they weren't expecting last year made them kind of maybe they knew internally they were like, look, we still don't think we're that good, but we won a playoff game against the Vikings last year. We had a really good, surprising season.
And they got
If we
absolutely
don't
shit
re-sign
on by the
Saquon,
Eagles.
if we don't bring back Dimes, if we kind of not necessarily tank, but just kind of accept who we think we are. They didn't want to do that because they didn't want the public scrutiny. That they were like, fuck it, like we'll just go for it. Let's see what happens, and then it just kind of all went south. Because even last year, like they shouldn't have been that good. It was a surprise.
No, I mean they overachieved for sure.
And now
but
this year, it's like if you go and looking at their roster, it's hard to believe like rationally and looking back now, and obviously hindsight, but it just they're not good. Like it's not. You could blame Dable, and it is alarming how like unprepared they have been for these games. But they just don't have any talent. They don't.
No,
their wide
I mean-
receiver one is Jordan Hyatt.
the schedule is fucked up.
Tough schedule.
It's a really tough schedule. Everything just looks terrible. I mean, the defense is on the field for 45 minutes a game,
Like the Jets do.
and they haven't even looked that bad. They haven't looked great. I mean, they've let up a ton of points, but I think we've scored probably the fewest amount of points in the NFL.
Yeah,
I
you
don't.
also haven't led for more than like
Yeah, I mean, outside of the second half against the Cardinals, I mean, we've looked terrible.
It's the same thing every year with the New York teams. It's like, and then we have to watch the Chiefs and the Bills on primetime, and it's like,
and it looks so easy.
They play a different sport.
Yeah.
We have been watching this hard. Even with the Jets when they were good, the offense still wasn't like the offense was bad. We had a run game. Mark Sanchez was a game manager, and we had a great defense. Now Aaron Rodgers is out. We have a great defense. We have some nice weapons. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. We have Zach Wilson. At best, is kind of a game manager. I mean, fortunately, he hasn't turned the ball over. But it's like kind of like the Giants. Like since you guys had those Super Bowl wins, like which fortunately you had, we haven't had shit. Like
it's not the same though.
You guys haven't had an offense that made sense.
When you're
two Super Bowl, we haven't had shit.
But you guys talk more shit. You talk, not that you talk the most shit, but you're a Yankees fan and you talk about how great the Yankees are. The Giants have won a Super Bowl more recently than the Yankees.
I know.
In that series.
But
so
when you're
like
really, you don't realize how difficult it is when you win. When your teams win,
you don't realize how difficult it is to witness your team actually win a championship.
Yeah, but when you're like,
it's a lot harder. It's a lot better to just suck every year.
Yeah, it's a lot better to be miserable for 18 years of your life when you finally started watching football at 6.
When you're 10 years old, you're like, oh, they'll just do it again next year. Like you don't.
But at least you can say I witnessed the championship. Me and Sam can't say shit.
Yeah, but you're a much bigger Jets fan
all
now.
my teams just straight misery. Back-to-back AFC Championship games for the Jets. Fucking blew it. Mets go to the World Series. Blow it against the Royals. 2 years ago in the postseason for the Mets. Blew it against fucking.
We had to hear the trumpets in the fucking 8th inning. Down fucking what, 6-1?
And the year after we lost to the Royals, we go to the wild card game. We get absolutely fucking destroyed by who is it? San Francisco.
It was like 1-0. It was a pitcher's duel. It was between Bumgarner and Syndergaard. I was at the game, and what's his fucking name? Connor Gillespie. No, is it Connor Gillespie?
That sounds right.
He hit the home run. Remember in like the 8th inning?
I don't remember. I blocked out of my mind.
Yeah, it's been nothing but pain for us.
And I mean, I know you about to say as a Rangers fan. I mean, I've gone between
how many Eastern Conference Finals. And just ends in pain.
The Kings series.
New York sports
awful.
Just blow. We should just merge all of our teams and we'd still suck. It's depressing.
We talk about this often while we're watching these games on Sunday. If you combine the Jets and the Giants, like
I think we're still a sub 500 team.
I know, no, I think they're good, but it still doesn't address the biggest point of need with no Rodgers. The two biggest points of need: offensive line and quarterback. We get Andrew Thomas, that's about it, but we just lost AVT, so it kind of evens out. Back then, who the fuck knows?
John Michael Schmitz is good.
Yeah, but he's okay. We got Danny Dimes or Zach Wilson, two kind of, no offense, bums.
Yeah.
They don't have any receivers that we could get. They don't have any receivers we pick up.
I think that's actually a decent offensive line. If you throw
Dexter Lawrence.
If you throw Andrew Thomas at left tackle, Mackay at right, your guards are, Tittman and...
whoever you guys
Lincoln
got.
Tomlinson.
It's not us.
And then you throw John Michael Schmitz in at center. That's a decent offensive line.
Okay.
Yeah, but who's throwing the ball?
The thing is, like the Giants, if the Giants had like a stud, they don't really.
The Jets don't take any single skill position player for the Giants on offense or defense.
I mean, maybe Waller.
No. He's looked awful this year. I'd rather have Tyler Conklin,
I like the three guys
who I know is going to block.
Fair.
My favorite tight end to watch on the Jets is Ruckert. Long Island guy.
Ruckert's another one.
He is such a good blocker.
A monster.
He is such a good blocker, and he's low key a good pass catcher, but they just don't throw it to him. He had that one catch in the Chiefs game.
That back shoulder throw.
I'll tell you what, though, the backfield with Breece Hall and Saquon would look electric.
Saquon's hurt, so we're not counting him, right?
He's coming back. He's not like long-term injury.
It's better than Dalvin Cook. Oof.
But imagine that.
I almost feel bad for Dalvin Cook. That's how bad he's been.
I saw on ESPN a trade. I can't remember who it was with, but it was basically sending, I think it was to Baltimore. You send Dalvin Cook and a 4th-round pick to Baltimore for a 5th-round pick.
Dalvin Cook and a what?
Dalvin and a 4 for a 5.
Why would you do that?
They said because it helps with rollover cap for next season.
Can't we just cut him?
Yeah, but you still eat the cap.
Wouldn't that be this year? Why would it affect next year?
I mean, I don't think
That's what they
Dalvin Cook's
said
your
in the article.
problem. He's not a solution, but he's not.
He definitely ain't a solution.
He's not a
thing is,
solution.
basically
but-
falls
the
forward.
the problem-
That's basically what he
So
does.
give the ball to Brees.
The problem with him is
He was
that
supposed to be solid.
What are we talking
That's
about?
the issue.
Talking about
We could have
backup
got
running
fucking
backs? Who gives
Izzy.
a
The
shit?
fucking
You
rookie
can't-
could have probably been as effective.
with him being there, speaking of a rookie, Izzy Abadaconda, him not being able to come up into the starting lineup is what hurts because you have Dalvin Cook on the team. You don't have another spot to bring up
Wasn't
another
Izzy
running
hurt
back.
too?
All right, we're going down a rabbit hole. No one gives a shit about your third string or practice
All
squad
right.
running back for the Jets. No
Well,
offense.
we have 3 minutes left on this timer. I can just reset it one more time and then we could talk this week?
Yeah, I think we should just go game by game and just pick. This is running long.
Can
We're
we
talking
do-
about who?
Can we do
Is
that?
that even a human?
Now let's run a who?
Who the fuck was that last guy?
Izzy Abadaconda?
He's a rookie. He's
I
on
think
Hard Knocks.
Yeah, he was on Hard Knocks.
I didn't watch
I think
Hard
he's the all-time leading rusher in Pitt history. He went to the University of
James
Pitt.
Conner over James Conner?
I think he got more rushing.
I'm going to be
yards
honest. I
than
couldn't
James
pronounce
Conner.
his last name. I just know his
Abanaconda?
name is Izzy A. All right. Let's go over the last. Let's pick our winners for this week, and then we'll wrap it up. So
We're picking the whole thing.
I'll just read them off quickly, and you pick. Who, you
Just
don't have to
pick
reason.
every
just
game
pick,
and-
just pick who you're gonna pick money line. Who wins? Okay, so we already had Broncos Chiefs. I think we would all pick Chiefs anyway.
Yeah.
Ravens Titans.
Ravens.
I think I'm going to go Titans. I can't trust the
You're a fucking
Ravens.
idiot.
I can't trust the Ravens either, but I'm gonna take the Ravens just because Tannehill's looks so bad.
The Ravens
this year.
probably win, but they
All right.
just choke.
Panthers Dolphins.
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 Saints Texans.
Saints.
I'm going to go Texans.
I'm gonna go Texans as well. I think it's gonna be a good game actually. Commanders Falcons.
Commies.
Commies.
Commanders. Colts Jags.
Jags.
I don't love it. I'm going to take the Colts coming after two wins in London. I'm going to take the Colts.
I'm gonna take the Jags. Seahawks Bengals.
That's a good game.
That is a good game.
You guys really take a long time to pick.
I
these.
don't know.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm
Seahawks.
thinking too.
Really?
Yes. The
At
Browns
home?
look terrible.
Cincinnati at home?
I want to see it at least twice from the Bengals before I start.
All right, I'm taking
Staying there back.
I'm taking Cincinnati.
I'm taking
They don't have to be
Cincinnati.
back, but they're at home.
The
They're
Seahawks
coming
are a
off
solid football team. They're not the best, but they're good on both sides of the ball.
I think they finally got Jamar Chase rolling. I'm going to take the Bengals.
I don't think he's the issue. I think the issue is if Joe Burrow can throw the ball since he's pretty much on one leg. Vikings Bears.
Bears.
Vikings.
I'll take the Vikings. I think it's going to be close though. 49ers Browns.
Niners.
No Watson either.
Niners.
Niners. Patriots Raiders.
Jesus
I
Christ.
don't think anyone wants to watch this game.
Raiders.
Raiders. Lions Bucks.
Lions.
Lions.
Lions. That was my lock. Cardinals Rams.
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 Rams. Eagles Jets.
Jets.
I mean, the Eagles, but I'm rooting for the Jets for
No
once.
Jalen Carter and no Darius Slay.
I don't think
I'm
it
going to go
matters.
Jets. Eagles probably win, but we're Jets fans, so we kind of have no choice. Giants Bills.
Bills.
Giants.
Put
on my clown mask.
Respect it.
This guy's no fucking reason.
Bills.
Giants.
And then Monday night game, we got Cowboys Chargers, which I think should honestly be a really good game.
Chargers.
Chargers.
I think.
I'm going to go Cowboys. I don't think the Chargers are well coached. I don't think their defense is that good. Yeah, I think Justin Herbert's kind of...
It's a toss-up.
I think he's
but
keeping them around. Should we talk before we end? What do we think about the Justin Jefferson situation? Do you think he's... I saw... There's a lot of people online who are speculating they don't bring him back.
I mean,
They do have 3 winnable games, so it's like if they win these 3 games, maybe in the next 4 might be
without him
winnable.
though,
It's possible. I mean, they have good wide receivers outside of him. Jordan Addison's pretty much a stud rookie.
T.J. Hawkinson's
T.J.
good.
Hawkinson's great.
KJ.
KJ
KJ
Osborne.
Osborne's a really good wide receiver 3.
The problem is that now teams just get to key in on you could just leave everybody manned up and just rush the shit out of Kirk.
That's true, but also they do have an easier schedule. I don't know who the rest. If you want to look that up, they're playing the Bears this week. I'm pretty sure they play at least 2 or 3 more bottom of the league teams. So I mean, they've been in every game for the most part. Like
All of their losses have been like one score. I mean,
And they're-
But this is exactly how, except the opposite of last year. They won like 8
Oh, yeah, they
one-score
won every
games
close
and
game.
ended up going 13.
so they have the Bears in Chicago,
Winnable.
then at home against the Niners,
loss.
in Green Bay, and then
Easily win that game.
in
I
Atlanta.
don't think they can easily.
Easily win Atlanta. They can easily beat Atlanta.
Oh, I thought you were saying Green Bay.
I'm saying it's winnable. Like if
That's-
three of
that's
those 4
winnable.
games are very winnable. For them.
I think if he's healthy and they're still mathematically in it,
The thing is,
You
it's a
bring
contract.
The
year for
biggest
him.
problem is with the Atlanta
Kirk.
game is that their defense has been just awful, and there's talks about them trading Danielle Hunter away. If they trade away their best defensive player, especially their best defensive lineman, Bijan's going to just absolutely destroy that entire defense by himself.
I think it really just depends on what they do while he's out. If they lose all 4 games,
If they go 3-4, which is possible in my opinion, I think they
It's
bring him
also
back.
possible to
But
go,
if they go 1-4 or 1
1 and
if I go
3.
if they go 3-1 or they go 1-3, if they go 1-3,
it's possible they go 0-4 though.
if they go 0-4, 1-3,
you think twice.
why would you bring him back?
You don't.
There's no point.
But the problem
And I
is,
know that sucks for Justin Jefferson fantasy owners.
Yeah,
it sucks for Justin Jefferson also because that's going to affect his contract talks.
I don't think it will.
I don't think it will either. I
think
mean,
it
just
will.
look at
If it's
his.
a minor injury and he's fine and they just kind of hold him out, you think a team's not going to give Justin Jefferson the bag?
I don't think Minnesota does. Is what I'm saying.
I heard a rumor that Minnesota gave him a huge contract extension this offseason and he didn't accept it.
Because he thought he was going to go
Because-
out and put up 1,400 yards and 20 touchdowns, which is not out of the realm of possibility for a guy like him. But
No.
he got injured.
Well, we'll
he
see
bet
how
on
the
himself.
Cards play. I mean, they could go 0-4 and he could just be like, bro, I want to play. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, look, I just came off this injury. Season's nowhere. I'm going to get a bag regardless. Let me go test out free agency. He's going to be a free agent, right?
I
forgot
honestly
what
don't
year
know.
He was drafted. I think he was.
I could look at his contract.
Because if he's going to be a free agent, like,
I think he was the 2018 draft. So I think so.
someone's going to give him
A lot of
a
money.
lot.
Come to the Giants.
He is, because he's special. Like, he is just
Joe Burrow's
different.
first year was 2020, right? Or no, that was Trevor Lawrence.
Was Burrow's first year 19? No, this is Burrow's 4th year? There's no
Yeah,
way.
because he just signed a
Oh,
contract
yeah,
extension before
it
the
is.
season
All right.
started.
Because he missed basically the first year,
All
then
right.
they went to the Super Bowl, then they last
Spot
year.
Track
fourth
has
year.
him. He's not a free agent until 2025. He's under contract next year.
So if it comes down to simply the extension, I still think it's possible that they could just protect their asset at that point. Right? Season's over. Let's tank. Let's try and get Caleb Williams. Kirk, we could potentially trade at the deadline, or we just don't re-sign him, or we re-sign him for like a 1 or 2 year deal. Draft Caleb Williams, have Caleb Williams sit under him for a year.
What's their record right now?
They're 1-4, I believe.
If they're 1-6, they're trading him. If they're 1-6,
Who do
they're
you
trading
do you
him.
think the Jets are an option?
The Jets are definitely an option.
Well, he has his 5th year option.
Yeah,
So they
No,
can
but
pick
Kirk,
it
this is
up.
Kirk's last year.
Oh,
We're talking about
Kirk.
Kirk.
All
Yeah,
right.
we moved on.
I was
We moved
looking-
on to Kirk because
yeah,
it's
no,
definitely
I was looking at
it's
Justin
definitely a
Jefferson.
possibility that they trade him. It's probably a strong probability that they trade him. I think the Jets should be in the conversation with going after him, and I think Joe Douglas knows what the value should be. It's probably a 5th round pick. You're not going to get more for a 36-year-old Kirk Cousins on basically an 8-game contract.
Yeah. What other teams? I'm trying to think of other teams that would be interested. Because the Jets are obviously, they jump out. They have this great defense. Zach Wilson, we don't know. I mean, who knows? Zach Wilson could have a good 3 weeks, and then we could all just, we could drink the Kool-Aid. We could be like, Zach Wilson, he's the next,
The
great
problem,
quarterback.
The problem is that there's really no other team that's in a position where.
Steelers, perhaps, potentially.
But they're another team. Like, what's their
But
record?
they're like 3-2.
Or are they 3-2?
Yeah,
I thought
'cause
were
they just
two-
beat
I
the
thought they were
Ravens.
2-3.
They're all the Steelers, bro. They're always in the mix. They're always this scrappy group. They're gonna
So
win
does
games.
that
if
mean
they-
they're giving up on Kenny Pickett?
I don't think you have to give up on Kenny Pickett, though. I think you could just be like, look, Kenny, like, we still believe in you long term, but we think with this defense, we have a chance to make a run. We're in this, and we want to take a run at it. And I think if the cost is a 5th round pick, why would the Steelers not be interested?
The thing is, I don't think Kenny's the problem. I think Matt Canada is the problem along
He's
with the rest of the
terrible.
country. But I think Matt Canada is the problem. I think Najee Harris is the problem. and the offensive line isn't as good as it usually is.
No,
This is
but
a-
at the
think
same
Kenny
point,
Pick-
it's
I don't think Kenny Pickett's the reason.
There's no
I-
debate that Kirk's better.
This is
There's
a
no
weird
debate,
one.
debate that Kirk's better, but I don't think Kirk puts them over the top. Like, they're not a team. Pittsburgh is not a quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl. That's a team that, and plus another thing, Kirk Cousins has a no trade clause in his contract, so he decides where he goes. He has to agree on where he goes.
All right,
And
I
I
heard
don't
he
think-
also wants to stay in Minnesota. Like he's
I'm
very
sure he-
comfortable there.
I'm sure he is, and he may not want to go anywhere. But if there's an opportunity for him to win a Super Bowl, it's not going to be with the Steelers. I can guarantee you that.
Well, I think outside of the Jets, realistically, most likely a quarterback would have to get hurt for Kirk to really be moved.
Right, and we won't find out that for another 3
and
weeks.
you hope no one gets injured. But realistically, that's probably. I don't even think the Jets would trade for him. I think they'd look into it. But if
The
they're
next-
doing well, because then people could say it gets messy. Because then what do you do with them after? Or,
Who?
I don't know. Like, does
What do
it
you do with
affect-
who after?
with Rodgers, because they're gonna have Rodgers next year. What do? Do you just trade for him and admit?
That's it. I
What
mean,
if
he's
it
a-
works out though? What if they go on a run with Kirk? Do you just then what do? You just thanks.
You let
bye.
him. Yeah, thanks. Bye. Rodgers is coming back. We know that this team is Super Bowl capable. Rodgers is a better QB.
What do you guys think about this? How long is Anthony Richardson out? You think he could go to the Colts?
From 4 to 8 weeks. No,
I don't
because
think
I
Colts
don't
are
think
gonna win,
I
yeah.
don't think the Colts are a quarterback away. I think the Colts
I mean,
I think the Colts are in a position where they're better off losing.
They're 3-2.
Yeah, but with no Anthony Richardson, and for the next, let's just say he's out for 6 weeks. It takes them only 6 weeks to get back. And what's their record? 3-2.
Yeah.
I got one.
Let's just say they're 4-6 at that point.
Well,
what if shit goes south in Dallas
No, because
and it's all on Dak?
they already traded for Trey Lance. They're not going to trade for Kirk Cousins.
I think the Colts wouldn't be the worst fit.
I don't think it would be the worst fit, but like I said, they're not a team that's a quarterback away from a championship. They're probably in a better position to wait for Richardson to come back, let him finish out his rookie season, see what you got with him. Also, then go into a draft where you're saying, all right, we're probably picking borderline top 10, depending on where we finish at the end of the year. Everybody's trading up for this loaded quarterback draft class. A guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. probably can fall to you, or you can even trade up to get him.